Edward Izzi is with us today. He doesn't, don't call on him in early April to do anything because he's a CPA. That's his, and works with one of the larger firms around, and I think he has his own firm. And on the other hand, he tells us in a Zoom that we did that he can't sleep at night, and when he can't sleep, he writes. So no writer's block there, and you can see from the number of books that he's got. What are there?
Right there.
6 books at least, 6 titles on display right now. And I started reading When a Rook Takes a Queen, and it sounded very familiar, ripped from the headlines in Chicago. The Queen was the mayor, and she gets assassinated. Well, that's not a spoiler, is it? Oh. And then there's a lot of fallout after that. That's just the beginning. So I'm really pleased to introduce Edward Izzi, or Izzi, as we would say.
My name's Edward Izzi. Good morning to all of you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Donna and Hannah, for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here in front of the Italian American Literati, Casa, Italia. With the COVID-19 pandemic, now that it's almost over, let's hope. We hope anyway. We can discuss some of the creativity that this isolation and this extra time in front of our computers has allowed us to recently accomplish. I've written 7 books. All of them is a product of my insomnia. I don't want to bore you with a lot of the storylines or the characters or how I came up with the titles and so forth. I want to discuss something else that might be a little bit dark. And being that my day job is a CPA and I write thriller fiction novels, we kind of think a little bit on the dark side. So I'm going to ask for all of your apologies in advance, or forgiveness, I should say. All of us assembled here today call ourselves writers. We write for relaxation, we write for profit, we write for creativity, and we write for fun. But in reality, there begs one difficult question that is so often asked by many of us: why do we really write? As novelists, poets, and authors, there are many reasons why we push ourselves to string some words together and express ourselves on a blank piece of paper. We normally do this using a laptop, a computer, an ancient underwood typewriter, perhaps. And if none of those are available, perhaps a number 2 lead pencil. There are many subjects that we as writers pursue in our expressions for the literary word. Some of those subjects delve into mystery, fiction, nonfiction, history, language, music, romance, and other cultural topics, which we as writers tend to express ourselves. But there's one haunting common thread that we as novelists and poets all seem to battle and combat within ourselves in one form or another. And that common thread is called demons. You've all heard me correctly. Demons. We all have them. We all know of others in our lives who have them. We all have loved ones who have battled their demons every day, every evening, sometimes every waking moment, day in, day out. Demons. The definition of such horrific imaginary beings comes from the dictionary as supernatural, unseen, invisible beings, typically associated with evil, prevailing historically in religion, cultism, literature, fiction, mythology, and folklore. They are a large part of the media, comic books, video games, movies, and of course, cable television. In ancient medieval times, a demon was considered a harmful spiritual entity, which could cause demonic possession calling for a religious exorcism performed by the Catholic Church. In Western occultism and during the Renaissance period, a demon was believed to be a spiritual entity that was conjured and sometimes controlled. The supposed existence of demons remains an important concept in many modern religions and in numerous occultist traditions. Demons are feared because of their alleged powers to possess living creatures. Demons come in the form of many shapes and sizes and are created from a long, intimate history of our own life's personal pains and disappointments. It could come from a traumatic experience during childhood or a violent incident that occurred from our past, perhaps, or a failed relationship or a broken marriage, a haunting image of someone that maybe we truly love with all our hearts, only managed to terrorize, hurt, and disappoint us. Someone who was passed into another world, crying out for our help within the abyss of some dark, distant purgatory, or perhaps the promised afterlife. And for many of us, those demons come to visit us when we close our eyes. Our failures, our broken dreams, our traumatic experiences, all come on us deep down inside when the lights are dark, the shades are drawn, and the world around us is completely silent. It is those internal monsters that we all struggle with, constant battle and trying to keep our sanity and our wits' end. We constantly struggle to maintain a sense of normalcy as our internal monsters work in our inner psyche, pushing us to points of despair, depression, anxiety, and some constant internal strife. These satanic, invisible, evil spirits can sometimes possess us, taking over our reasonable thought processes and turning them into some self-doubting weapons of inner destruction. As we all know, that inner destruction can be extremely dangerous. They are dangerous to our loved ones. They are dangerous to our families and our friends. But most of all, our demons are extremely dangerous to us. As writers, we sometimes compose words on a page to rectify those thoughts that are unwelcome to our minds. We write to express ourselves, trying to release the negative energy that is pent up inside of our brains and in our souls. We put words down on paper, attempting to create a story that will satisfy those demonic thoughts tightly crammed into our heads. We create fictitious characters who are able to commit the evil crimes between two bound covers of leather that we, as civilized human beings, cannot realistically do in real life or in a real world. We generate storylines and compose poetic stanzas trying to tell a tale of frugality and determining right from wrong, good from evil, black and white. As writers, no matter how good our stories are, once they're finished, they all end up the same way. We are back to the same place, struggling to eradicate our imaginary demigods. We can all think of several famous writers who come to mind who have tried to battle their internal demons on their own and have lost doing so. Writers like John Berryman, Jack London, Virginia Woolf, Anne Sexton, Edgar Allan Poe, and of course, Ernest Hemingway, all ending their lives by dying from their own hands, all destroyed by their own horrific demons. And then there was another famous Chicago writer with whom I share a surname with. His name was Eugene Izzi, who was found hanging from the 16th-story window on Michigan Avenue. A rope was tied around his neck and attached to one of the legs of his office desk. He staged his own death, making it look as though it was an actual murder. He had a small can of mace, a loaded gun, and a set of brass knuckles on his coat pocket when he was found by the Chicago PD on December 7th, 1996. His suicide, although well staged, included an unpublished draft of an upcoming book with a well-written description of his own final murder scene, documenting his actual death. That writer had published a long list of well-documented inner demons. All of these famous, talented authors battled depression, bipolar disorder, mental illness, schizophrenia, and in their intense inner anxiety using alcoholism, drug use, and other destructive addictions to help them cope. All of this from their own inner demons. And so, as struggling writers, with day jobs such as teachers, lawyers, accountants, dentists, chefs, doctors, waiters, managers, salesmen, administrators, and the like, there still remains one real question. Why do we write? To express ourselves? Perhaps. To tell a good story? Maybe. But deep down, all of us inside, as writers, there are those lingering tears that just never want to go away. And latently, deep down within our souls, lies the real reason for our writing. We write to cope, we write to communicate. But most of all, we write to release the demonic images that can dangerously overtake us in the form of a bottle of liquor, bag of white powder, or a vial of a dozen or more pills. As writers, especially those of us who struggle with our own demons, we fight a losing battle in coping with those psychological monsters. For some writers, on some days, every day is a struggle. For some of us, every evening is an attestation of successfully completing another day without hurting ourselves or someone else. And so, we compose words and sentences onto a blank computer screen. For every word, for every sentence, for every paragraph we put down on paper, we continue to temporarily push away those evil monsters. Far, far away, for now. As we put all those words together, streaming them into a storyline, we have successfully drawn out the emotions of our readers, our adoring book fans, who enjoy the string of words and sentences that our personal demons force us to create and put together. Our words, our sentences, our storylines make others laugh. Our words make others cry. Our stories make others think about subjects or topics that they never would have imagined or even considered. Our fictitious tales, our paperback novels, or electronic books on Kindle bring out the emotions of our readers that no other medium can ever do at no other place or time. Our leather-bound novels can bring entertainment, contentment, and even joy to those who appreciate our written words. Written words that at most times originate from our evil personal demons. And so, as an author, my advice to anyone who is awakened in the middle of the night, who has experienced a nightmare or a terrible dream, to anyone who's had a personal visit from their own satanic demons, to any insomniac who may have trouble going back to sleep in the middle of the night, my advice to them is to get up, get out of bed, and walk over to the window. Pull up the shades, look up at the dark and starry sky. Somewhere out there is a writer or a poet battling his own personal monsters in front of their laptop, converting their psychological conflicts into storylines of fiction, mystery, amusement, and personal prose. Somewhere in the darkness, beyond their personal demons, there is someone out there struggling to put their dreams and nightmares into words of healing and comfort. Somewhere in the middle of the night, someone is transforming their own cries of malice and evil into some written, warm, profound literary joy. Somewhere beyond the evening sky, someone is writing a great story. And this is why we write.